Okay, part 3. Strand 8, here we go. Let's go through the bottom marks. So, limited number of results, so not many tables. Okay, charts or graphs. So that's going to be fairly obvious, isn't it? When somebody just has 3 plot points, probably hasn't labelled there. Maybe just a word there, no units, that's only going to get them 1 or 2 marks. Okay, let's look at 3 or 4. So, let's imagine they can do some simple charts. Okay, some errors in scaling or plotting. So, what are we looking for scaling? Okay, we've got to have nice, sensible units. Going up in 5s, maybe. Okay, maybe they're going up in 2s. Maybe they're going up in 10s. But they're not going to be going up in 7s and 8s. 9s or 3s. Bad choice. That's not going to happen. Okay? If you've got to plot 6.2, you're never going to be able to find it there. So that's got to be done. You've got to have a good scale. Okay? Also, this has to be the same all the way up and all the way down. Same in maths, same in science. Okay? It's got to be a consistent graph. Okay? Lots of people say, which way shall I do the paper? Doesn't matter, you can do it either way. Just figure out which is the nicer scale, this way and that way, or this way and that way. It doesn't matter, as long as you are using 50% minimum of the graph paper. So that one's probably about 80%, isn't it, this one? That's probably about 90%. So when you look at your graph and the scales that you're picking, just be very careful. There's a piece of paper. There's graph there, graph there. That's just about only just 50%. Okay, that's only just going to get you the mark. Okay, be very careful. You'd want to change this axis here, wouldn't you? There's a piece of paper again. Extend it. This axis looks fine. There, you're probably at 90% there. So that'll be fine. So, that's what you want to do. It says allow some errors in scaling or plotting. So, when your teacher checks your plot points, if you get some of them wrong, they realise that that plot point should be there, that one should be there, that one should be there, that one should be there. Okay, then you're only going to get 3 or 4 marks. Right, so let's just clarify. Paper direction, that's not really important. You pick the way you want the paper to get the scale. What is important though is that this scale on the bottom needs to be the independent variable and this is the dependent variable. What does all that fancy nonsense mean? You've probably forgotten from Key Stage 3. This is the thing that you can control. So if you can change the voltage, if you can set the volume, you can set the current, you can set the time, you can set the concentration, whatever you can control here, that's what you put on there. And this is the output. Okay, this is what you're measuring. So as long as you're following those rules, the paper can go either way. Okay, let's get to 5 and 6 marks. Let's get on with it. We're going to have decent scales. We're going to have proper labelling. We're going to put the units on here. What are units? The voltage, if you're measuring a voltage. The distance in meters. The concentration, whatever it is. Write down the units that you're measuring it in. Okay, it also says a line, an appropriate line of best fit. So I keep doing mine in this direction, so let's assume that you've got sort of data like this. It's the line that is the best compromise between all of the plot points. So there's a balance between one side and the other. So if you look here, there seems to be an equal number either side. That's pretty much going through the middle, that's going through the middle. So there's, on average, that seems to be the line of best fit. Your graph may not be looking like that. It may be looking something like this. It might be going downwards. Excuse me, I've only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plot points. So that Well, is that a line of best fit or is that a curve? But let's assume that's going to be a line of best fit. That's maybe a little bit high, but you get the hang of it. Okay, so you may have data that is going like this, where you've got a curve through there. Again, you're expected for these marks to a line of best fit, and I'll do my best with the pen. It won't be easy, and I'm not making any promises, but here we go. You ready? You ready? Here we go. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Okay, so there's an example of how not to do it. Look, they're all below the line, so that was rubbish. Okay, so let's imagine we have a curve of best fit on this graph, says he, fitting it on one graph. We'll try again, and that's probably more like it. So that's an appropriate line of best fit. Okay, let's look how we are going to get 8 marks here. So how are we going to indicate the spread? Well, the way I'd suggest is, let's consider the independent variable. I'll just make up a set of data. Let's imagine this was the first trial, and I got, let's say, 4, and I got a 5 and a 3. And the second trial I got a 9, an 11 and a 10. And I got a 14, I got a 16, I got a 15. And then I got a 21, a 20 and a 19. Then I got a 25, a 27 and a 26. Okay, then I worked out the average. Okay, so the first result, the output or the outcome was, let's say the average of that is 4. This one is 10. This one is 15. Carefully selected figures. This one is 20, totally made up in my head so that I get a nice average I can do in my head, and that's 26. Nearly got it wrong. Okay, you'd obviously have to use a calculator because you'll have real data. So, how are we going to indicate the spread of results for these? So, as I said, this is the independent variable down here. Scale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Okay, so for the first point, I've got an average of 4. So I'm going to plot 4 on my graph. It's the point here, 4. So 1 and 4. So I plot 4. Okay, then plot point 2 is 10. So 2 is 10 about up there. Assume I've labelled this up. Just trying to make it easy for myself. Then we've got 3 and 15. So 3 and 15 was there. And 4 and 20, 4 and 20, and 5 and 26. 5 and 26. Now, this is how we're going to indicate this. This is how we're going to show the spread of results. Okay, you don't have to use different colours, but I'm just using a different colour pen here. So for the first result, the minimum is 3, the maximum is 5. So you look for the minimum value here. Draw a line underneath the cross, and we'd look for the maximum. We'd look for the maximum there, and we draw the 5 there. And then we draw these kind of strange Star Wars figures. Second one, the minimum is 9, the maximum is 11. So you look again for 9 and 11. And you carry on doing this for the maximum and the minimum value. So you get a set of data, plot points like this. So basically it's the average, and then the minimum, and the maximum. That's basically how you're going to indicate the spread on your graph. Okay, in practice your graph is going to not look quite as manipulated and made up as mine. Your real data will be probably, imagine it's a straight line correlation between the data. Okay, you're probably going to get error bars that kind of change a little bit. Some are bigger than others, some are smaller, like this. So imagine this is one set of data. Let's imagine that we've got a second set of data. I'll leave it on the same graph just so it's easy to talk about. So let's imagine I had another set of data and it was something like this. Okay, and you had lots of very tight error bars. Okay, that would indicate to you that that's a good spread of data, and you can talk about that later. Your error bars may be, I'll just draw a third set of data on here, let's go for green. Okay, you may have error bars that are more like this. You may have something like that. Okay, that's indicating a lot of spread. It's not quite as good. So, good set of data, we're looking at something like this. Reasonably good is kind of the middle result, and then this one here where we've got these massive error bars, that would not really be considered good data, and we'll discuss that later on in another marking strand. Okay, well that's halfway through. We have now covered 4 of the 8 strands. 4 out of 8 strands. So that's halfway through, and I propose you stop now, you have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, have a biscuit, ponder on what we've written about, maybe write a few notes from it, and do a checklist, and then how to have a look at part 2. Well, we'll finish this off later on. See you later!